Record meeting. Oops. Okay, we're
Perfect.
recording.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
you can
Okay,
see my
great.
screen.
Yes, I can see your screen. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
That's the thing, core values. That's what we're looking at the moment is trying. We've got a group together that's doing the finances. We've got a group together that's doing the core values. And
okay, okay. Let me speak. I hear what you're saying. I think is you have to. So I'm a permaculture teacher. So and I think about everything through which is a design strategy to build things that actually work. So you build around function. So what you say was not really interested in what things look like. Is does it do the job that it's supposed to do? Right. So form follows function. Okay. How do we build a group? You have to have core values that are mutually beneficial and reinforcing. Otherwise, and you need to be joined together, because what you're trying to do in build a community is you're trying to build a long-term project. So this is long-term thinking. Okay. And
absolutely.
that's very different than being reactive. So you have to learn to think differently. Rule number one.
Right.
So it's all very well to say we're going to build from values, but can you articulate what those values are in a way in which they actually make sense? Because it's really difficult. And what people try and do is they try to define their values by what they're not, and that does not work. So, well, I'm anti-capitalism, or I'm anti-racism, or I'm anti-sexism. That is not a value. Okay, so that's not, you can't, I'm a vegan or something like that. That's not a value. Okay, those are manifestations of people's internal thought processes, which is different. Okay, so what are our values? Well, permaculture gives you them. It helps you understand. So there's also an important thing is you can't tell someone else what their values are. They're not something you can impose. So these are things that you have to agree about before you worry about what kind of house you're going to live in. And and if you can't build a consensus around this, then you don't have a group. That's my. I'm being very concise about this, but that's basically the learning over the years. And
I 100% agree. Yes.
And what I find so very useful about permaculture is actually honest and it's pragmatic, because we might have a values, but we don't necessarily achieve them all the time. So you could, and the more ambitious, the more, whatever, let's we say, altruistic or whatever it is that you might be, then the more you might fall short of that. So people then might call you a hypocrite. So example is, I'm passionate about permaculture. I'm deeply concerned about climate change. I fairly regularly fly to Africa. Oh, isn't that a paradox? You said you cared about climate change. You went on an aeroplane. Yes, but I'm training thousands of people how to sequestrate carbon and plant trees. Maybe the net benefit is okay. So that's for me to decide, not you to judge. But I'm wrestling with that paradox in my life constantly. So so that the pragmatism within permaculture is I think is very, very important. And the ethics of permaculture are this. I can summarize them really simply: is that the first thing that you have to do, your first responsibility as a person, is feed yourself. Not anybody else. You. It starts with you. If you ever do go on an aeroplane and they get that little safety video and they say, in the event of the cabin depressurizing, an oxygen mask will descend in front of your face. Put yours on first. Don't try to help your kids or your gran, because if you go blue, now someone's got to fucking save you, right? So then, so there we go. So we don't even have to be nice. We can accept that everyone's trying to meet their own needs first, but the primary rule in permaculture and the ethic that you're asked to sort of submit to is there is such a thing as enough. Set limits to your consumption. Don't be greedy. And actually, when we define what that is, you have to be sustainable, to be able to work and improve the world. You need to be able to meet your own needs, feed yourself, clothe yourself, or heat your house or whatever, sort your kids out. And still have a surplus left. That's something left over for reinvestment. And you can spend that on improving your system, insulating your house, buying better jumpers or whatever, or you can invest it into other people or to the environment. So you can basically give it away. What do you do if you have too many runner beans? You give them to your next door neighbor and you make friends. You reinvest surplus into community. So within the permaculture ethic, then you also recognize that, so I'm allowed to meet my needs. So I now recognize that my neighbors and the people around me, they're all doing the same. So we're not in competition. The first thing we do is meeting our own needs. Any surplus that we have, let's put that into a mutual support so we can help each other be more effective at meeting those needs. And we call that people care. And the
100%.
next, the sort of the final ethic within permaculture is we have to understand that. Oh, someone else has arrived.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fun.
we have to understand that we're part of a living, breathing ecosystem. We're not in control of it. We don't fully understand it, but we're part of it. And as we look and interact with the natural world, we can understand that, you know, you can work out how to harmonize with that. And that's what we're actively trying to do. So we call that earth care. Okay, so
Yeah.
recognition that all life has a function of itself, you know, and we're part of this ecosystem, which is what creates the air that we breathe and the food that we eat. So there's your ethics. And that if it and then your job then is whatever is to try and apply and live within those ethics to the, you know, as functionally and effectively as you can, whilst accepting that you've got to make compromises all the time. I would like to buy fair trade products all the time, but I can't afford it. Okay, so choices, but that doesn't make you a hypocrite. That's you doing the best you can with the resources that you have. So let's not be measuring each other and tripping each other up. I think there's far too much division going on right now. Everybody's judging everybody. Let's kind of stop doing that and let's find an inclusive way of thinking. Everyone's trying to eat. Everyone's trying to meet their needs. Everyone's not trying to not feel like an idiot and whatever it is. And let's try and help each other in that, or recognize that in each other. And especially within community, we can then create a space where we're all actively seeking to create long-term outcomes. You know, which is for the
Mm.
benefit of everybody, not just for ourselves. Okay, so those are the values, and then you can sit and think about your long term goals, which we want to create affordable housing for ourselves. So that you already said to me, I don't want to whatever die alone in a council flat or something like that. Okay, that's a good long term goal. And how about and so strategies to achieve your long term goal is going to include things like, well, we're going to need to raise some money and find opportunities to live. So again, within permaculture, and I started thinking about this in my 20s, really. Um, or early 30s, but yeah, was that sort of realization is that if I was living in cold, damp, rented house and giving my money to a landlord who's spending that money somewhere else, is I'm never going to be able to sort of meet my own needs very effectively because I'm in a cold, damp house. So
Mm.
I then realized something like a housing cooperative would be really a first step, or you know, some other kind of housing where I didn't have a private landlord who was profiteering off me. And
Yeah.
that was quite a journey, was to figure out how to do that because I never had any cash. Um, and I always worked in environments and, you know, short-term contracts and stuff like that. So I could never get a mortgage. Um, in 1995, we managed to buy a farm with, had most of this land taken away. It had 4 acres of land, a house, a cottage, and a bungalow. And
Right.
we bought that with money that was 50% borrowed from a bank, 15% borrowed from a secondary co-op, and 35% from friends, family, and actual strangers as well that we didn't know that invested as a loan stock. So I can say right away that the thing that you're trying to do is absolutely doable. And if you can get your things, your priorities aligned in the right way, you'll be able to do it really successfully. But I think it's really, to be really optimistic. And you said it sounds like you've got quite a lot of money actually. You can get a mortgage for 70% of the value of your property if you write a decent business plan.
Mm.
And
Yeah, that's what we're looking at.
um, and so and I would strongly recommend that you look at forming a fully mutual housing co-op using radical roots model rules. And there's lots of reasons why you might want to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and I said before when we chatted is that's the only thing I really know about. So I'm kind of like bound to say that. But actually, it's also the reason why I say that is because I know that it really works and it's really flexible. And it's and actually in the process I've become a massive fan of cooperatives and cooperation, and I think that that's the framework that you need to go for. And I don't know how much you know about co-ops. I like to do
No,
talk.
I don't really know that much about it, to be fair. I mean, I've looked at a couple, and you know, my brain is a bit rubbish at the moment because I've got a lot of stuff on. But yeah,
Mm.
if you could briefly tell me what a
I
co-op
will,
is,
yeah.
that would
No,
be
no, no.
really
It's good. And I
helpful.
don't. It's okay. You know, there's no. Don't blame yourself for not knowing. We should have. This is stuff we should have been taught in primary school. So, in 1800, cooperatives started really it was originated from a process really of it's a long-term social project to bring around more justice and equality and investment in people and in community. And it's a socialist project that started 220 years ago. And by being a cooperative, you're joining something that has history, it has structure, it has precedence. Um, it's not just some legal structure. It's that cooperatives are autonomous societies. If you set up a co-op, you're 100% in control of it, but you can volunteer, you can join bigger co-ops, what we call secondary co-ops, where you can have all sorts of kinds of mutual support. And we're in the process of trying to set up a secondary co-op. And I think that that's the next step for what Dragons, what our co-op wants to do. And we'd definitely be putting out feelers to people like Silver or to yourselves or anyone else that we work with to go, actually, this is how you create long-term stability. Because the problem is,
Yeah.
and I can tell you, I have so much, because I've been doing this for so long, you start to see the patterns, right? But what happened at Chicken Shack was, to be able to set that up, this was back in the 90s, nobody knew anything about it. It was before the internet. It was so hard to get information. I found about co-ops in the green futures field at Glastonbury, and somebody handed me a fucking leaflet, and we stood in the middle of the field and talked for 3 hours. It was like, how else do you get new ideas? It's like, now it's sort of different, but that was what it was like back then. So it took us 2 or 3 years to really figure out what co-ops were. We went to meetings where we were trained in how to have proper meetings, how to do conflict resolution, and how to write business plans and understand what cooperative procedures are and all that sort of stuff. We got a lot of that training from Radical Roots. So we spent 3 or 4 years doing all of that training. We managed to be able to raise the money and start our co-op. And for the first 2 or 3 years, it was a bit stormy, as these things tend to be, because you're learning. And then we had about 10 years of train just rolling along the tracks, just absolutely everything just ticking along. Life got on, we all got busy, got jobs, and life, we grew up and everything. And then things started getting difficult again for whatever reason. Whatever, we need to make the next layer of decisions. It was about year 13, interestingly, of the co-op. And at that point, I suddenly realised this: none of the other members, none of the original people who'd set it up were still there. They'd all gone on, they were pioneer type people, and they'd gone on to do other things. And all 10, 15 years later, the people who were living there didn't really even know what a co-op was. They didn't really know how to resolve, they hadn't had that training. And so again, so then slowly the wheels start to come off, or you go through periods of when it's very difficult and you've got to almost reinvent yourself. That's why you would want to, as a co-op, join a secondary co-op. It's why you
Yeah.
would want
Yeah.
to link with other co-ops. So, because I'm realizing now, especially when you get to like 70 or 80s, you don't have to be still having the same discussions that you had 30 years ago when you set the co-op up.
No. No. And your
Um,
values change, I guess, as well, a little bit as well. You've got younger people coming in and they might have different ideas. I don't know. I mean, it
yeah,
is about sort of communicating effectively together as a core group. You also, I can understand how that can change, and that's fair enough. You're human, no one has,
yeah, and also
you're only
conditions.
responsible for yourself.
So, as I said, form follows function. So, the function is creating long-term affordable housing in a supportive environment for your members. So, how you achieve that might change because the outside world is constantly changing. Your economic forces are changing, so we might have different priorities. So we have to be allowed. But if the values, the sort of permaculture values and the cooperative principle values, which we can talk about, is they don't change. It's how you
No.
interpret them that might change, and how you might apply them.
Okay. So they were talking, so the rest of the group, so we've looked at this before, and some of them were going, oh yeah, the co-op route, that's good, the radical roots, that's amazing. And then they've kind of come back and gone, oh no, we don't like that anymore. We want to buy it in a trust. And I'm like, I have no idea about how you buy
That's
it
a
in a trust.
shit idea. It's a really
Right,
shit
okay.
idea. To be rude and blunt, but I'm just trying to save you time. Is
No,
you'll
I
be
would
arguing
appreciate
over it.
it.
You'll be arguing over it. You've got to work out what's your operating system. How are you going to run it?
Well, I don't, this
Because
is the thing, we don't
it,
know. This is,
it,
it's very whimsical as far as I'm
yeah.
aware.
So that's why I'm trying to nail you down to something that's actually something that's a tried and tested structure.
Yeah.
And so here's another thing, right? Is I would challenge, so within the radical roots model and within the co-op model, is this very, very important idea is if the value of your let's say you have a trust that people buy in and buy out, right?
Yeah.
So what happens when Okay, you want to cash your chips in, so you got to find someone to sell to, but the other people in the co-op don't, or in the thing don't like that person, or they, they're
Well,
less.
that yeah. So I was thinking like, so obviously I'm only a small investor. I'm putting in 10K. So I don't even want bricks and mortar. I just want a piece of land. So they were sort of saying about 10, 1 acre would be 10 grand, right? So so essentially you'd split up the acreage and the actual cost value would be sort of 6 grand. So I'd be putting in an extra 4. That 4 grand would go into a pot. So should anybody want to leave, there would be a pot of money that person could then just take. They wouldn't have to buy a buyer. We wouldn't have to then vet that person or make sure they're aligned with our values. So we were sort of saying that is a potential way that could work. But then I'm not at all money savvy or I wouldn't have a clue how we would do that. This is the thing. At the moment, what we've got is a group of people, several people with their houses sold, ready to go, but nobody really knows sort of how we're going to do it, how we're going to make sure that everyone's
Okay, can I make a
keeping
suggestion?
their investment safe,
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm
please
going to
do.
make a suggestion. What I'm going to, I think this is the best way to use the time, is for me to explain. I mean, you can say yes or no, right? It's your project. You do whatever you like, and you've asked me for advice, so I'll give my advice, and or let's say this is how we've done it. This is the structure that we've used at Chicken Shack, at Dragons, at Permanent Housing Co-op, at Town of Ron Housing Co-op, to name 4. And it's this, but there's some central ideas into it. So let's just say, for example, is you guys chuck whatever money you've got, you chuck it into a building, into a building, whatever, into an account, and that's now the co-op's money.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I write you a receipt for your money, and you put in £10,000, so you get loan stock issued to you for £10,000, and everybody gets whatever that, and that's the capital now of the co-op. Now, in cooperative thinking is, as an investor, you don't get any special privileges. You get interest. The same way as if you
Right.
put money in Barclays, they don't phone you up and ask how they're going to spend the money or invest the money. You just get interest. So you guys would be the co-op investors, and you got loan stock. And with that loan stock, you can set levels of interest, and you can also allow people to sort of to exchange it as well. But let's just say that. So um, you then find the property that you want to buy. You set up your structures, and do all of that setup process, and you look at the property that you want to buy, and then you write a business plan for it. Sorry, and let's just say so. Okay, I'm going to explain. I'm trying to say think of a very flexible example that would relates to you. Instead, I'm just going to say how we've done it at Dragons. Okay,
Yeah.
very simple.
Yeah.
It's very simple here. Is we've got 3 bedrooms and
Yeah.
a shop. That's what we've got. So the possibility of rent is 4 rents: 1, 2, 3 tenants, one in each bedroom, and the whatever the shop pays as rent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that we have a mortgage for £100,000, and we have private investors of £80,000.
Right.
We pay our mortgage every month to the bank, and once a year we pay interest to our investors. And the interest
Okay.
level that the investors get is slightly less than what the mortgage costs. And with that money, we bought the house, and we write a business plan, say based on 3 rooms, 3 rents for people, and the shop is like a slightly different kind of rent, but we rent the shop to a business, and they just pay us rent for that. And those are our members, and that's our income, and that's it. But here's the thing: if we were to sell the house and make a profit, that money does not belong to me or us. It belongs to the co-op, because the co-op is a legal entity of its own. So the difference is you're buying property, but not for the possibility of getting equity gain, of making money out of it. You're buying property for the purpose of
Right.
creating a permanent home. And so you live in it.
Yes.
Whilst you live in it, you pay rent. Everybody pays rent that is proportionate and fair for the services that they get from the co-op. So let's say, for example, is you guys bought a farm, or some people lived in the farmhouse. You'd work out what the rents would be for the farmhouse. You build your mud roundhouse in the field somewhere, and you'd pay some kind of a rent too. And those rents are what
Oh,
pay the interest on the loan stock, and what helps you pay back your mortgage as well.
right,
And
okay.
and the co-op rules state very clearly that it's one member, one vote. You're all equal. It's irrelevant of how much capital you've put in. The capital just gets you interest. It doesn't get you the biggest bedroom or the seat at the head of the table, because we're not interested in the investors. We're interested in the people who are going to live in the co-op. The purpose of a co-op is to create affordable housing. So that's what we're interested in, the members. And the co-op is run only by the people who are resident and paying rent. So there's no external people telling you what to do, but of course you're still responsible to your investors and loan stockholders and the bank, because you have to pay back to them. So that is a very flexible model that has democracy built into it, and it allows people to invest in you, and then maybe move in later or move out and leave their investment in you, or whatever.
Very flexible. Yeah, I like it. It's really good.
When we set up Chicken Shack,
I,
my first housing co-op is I lived in there for the first 3 or 4 years, and then I took the loan stock that I'd put in to help start it off. I then took it out again and used that to invest in starting my own business a few years later. So it doesn't mean your money's locked in forever. And obviously, after a few years, you can always remortgage as well, and then pay off the loan stockholders that way. It gives you. And here's another thing: is if you're a tenant in a housing co-op and you can't pay your rent, if you want to, you said you want to claim off the government, but you're still entitled to get housing benefit.
yeah, I think quite a lot of the other members feel quite strongly about having anything to do with a bank.
Well,
They don't want anything to do with the monetary
you have to go
system.
you specifically have to go to Triodos Bank, which are the only ethical
Yes,
bank.
I'm a member of those already. I did recommend those to some people, but I think people are thinking that money's going to become obsolete, and we're all going to be given a certain amount of money. Like they all want us to have one benefit. I'm not really sure. There's quite a lot of
The thing is, yeah, maybe, but
strong views about things that possibly could happen in the future. I think people are
I think
concerned
you've got to
about what is
be.
actually going to happen.
Yeah, I think you. Now, the thing is, what you're doing is that you're creating something that would be resilient to those changes, and the bank that you want to go through would still be Triodos. And you just set yourself the objective of paying off your mortgage as quickly as possible. I mean, if you can raise the money yourself, you don't need a mortgage. That's a better position. But the question is that you need to get on with it now, because what I find is a lot of some of these co-op groups have been talking about it for 3 years or 4 or 5, especially Silver Housing Co-op, is that they need to get on with it. I think it's almost like there's too many options.
Well, we've got a house in yeah. Well, we found a property that we really like. We just don't have enough money, but the people that own the property really like us, and they quite like our vision. So we were going to try and put a business plan to them and say, look, we can pay 1 million, but we can say that we can pay the rest. Could we come to some agreement type thing?
Okay, let me explain. Let me explain.
So we're trying to think about that.
With the structure that I've just suggested to you, you then say to them, we'll give you £1 million now, and then the £1 million stays in the co-op as loan stock, and we'll pay you interest.
Right,
if they don't need it in cash, then got the next challenge they've got is, what are they going to do with the £1 million, and or however much it is? And if that was a possibility, that helps answer that question.
Right. Okay. Perfect.
That's what I'd do. That would be my first question, and then the second thing was, well, if I can't, can you find other people who might want to invest into you? And if not, last resort, go to Triodos. But by all means, rather than setting the bar too high and go, well, I'm not working with banks, is get the house, get the asset, and get on with it, because I would strongly advise that. And do you know what? With the first housing co-op that I was involved in all those years ago, is the one that we call Chicken Shack. We only looked at one property.
Wow.
Literally, we walked in, we looked at his property, and I go, this is it. I know, because we knew what we wanted. We'd done the sums. We knew what we could afford. We wanted to have 8 people. The rent had to sort of, cut whatever. It had to be able to accommodate, a certain amount of things that we knew that people wanted, and having, because we'd done that thinking in advance, and we more or less knew who the sort of core group was, although it changed. Yeah, so there you go. So don't spend 3 years looking at all the options. Is if it's right, go for it. Seize the moment.
Go for it. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking as well, because I know they've looked at quite a few properties, but this one's so perfect, and the people are lovely, and there's a lot of buildings. There's one big main farmhouse, then there's 5 2-bedroom cottages, and then a couple of 1-bedrooms, and then 50 acres. I mean, it's gorgeous. But it's, and there's so many people, because my friend runs the group on Facebook, Join a Vision. Have you heard of Join a Vision?
No.
But
no, it sounds great. So again, it's going back to sort of going
back to people that are getting off of.
Yeah. The importance of having a structure and being able to make decisions as a group, as a diverse group in a complicated thing, and that you need to invest in that in your decision making, and getting that right is so important. And again, using something like the structures that I'm suggesting is that immediately gives you a shape and a way of doing things.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll stop doing that.
No, I like it. It's interesting.
Okay, yeah. Well, I can share a bit more. It's okay. I'll go back to it if you want, because it.
Hey guys. Is that Nicola? Oh, Lydia. Oh.
Oh no. Whoops. Done something silly now. Yeah, anyway, so all this permaculture malarkey is very, very interesting, actually. So and again, a lot of it is
yes, I've learned that before. I love that. I really love that way of doing things. It makes a lot of sense.
It's sort of a logic-driven and observation and feedback-driven system way of thinking. So it's like, if we can agree about the ethics, like basically this earth care, people care, fair share idea, that's something that we can really build on. So then the next question is, that's going to be informed by a set of principles about how we're going to work, and these principles are informed by observing nature.
Yeah,
absolutely. And because nature's the model for sustainability. And then actually what we're talking about is permaculture design. These aren't just ideas that exist in your head. So permaculture is about doing things, about creating real changes in the world. Yeah. So we also need a set of design tools to be able to actualize the ethics using the principles to create change in the world. And that change in the world that we're trying to create is about meeting our needs first, and then those of the people around us. So it's about self-empowerment. So you sort of create this sort of ethical model is, let's say we're trying to get to the middle. We're trying to get to a place where we're caring for ourselves, we're caring for our other people, but we're also understanding we're part of this living, breathing planet. So if every action that we do, we could, we're never going to achieve it perfectly. We allow ourselves, to fail, to not to, be perfect all the time. But we're trying to move into a space where everything that we do is good for me, it's good for everybody, and it's good for the planet. That's a unifying way of thinking, and a sort of problem-solving way of thinking. And I think that sort of approach can help really bring groups together. You're not asking and demanding people to be altruistic. You're just saying, be really conscious about what you do with your surplus, so that you can help things move forward collectively. So this is a very simple manual, just 30 pages. I noticed that all the permaculture books are like enormous and a bit scary because there's so many words in them. And we do a lot of teaching in Africa, and also in refugee settlements, and in multilingual, polylingual environments and stuff like that. So it made us think about how. I wrote a training manual that's only 30 pages, so I thought try and make it simple. And
yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah. And David Holmgren said, well, these principles, this bit, the principles bit is, if we look at nature and think about how to design is, you can simplify those ideas into 12 concepts, 12 principles, which are kind of memorable. And also is, like the hours of a clock, as it's a cycle. So 12 goes to 1, you know, in an endless cycle,
Yeah.
because change and evolution is open ended. And anyway, I don't know why I'm going on towards this, but this is what I'm being looking drawing things out of, and these are the sort of 12 principles, and I do a lot of teaching around that at all different levels.
Yeah.
So Uganda's just gone onto a 6-week lockdown, so they've just sent all the kids home and they're trapped in their villages for 6 weeks. So we're
Oh
going to do an
God.
online permaculture course for 6 weeks with school kids, and I'm
Yeah,
going to
that's
use this
amazing.
as a way to get to things. So, and that's the model that I use for consensus. That's why I was showing you that page to talk about co-op.
Yeah.
How do we come together to sort of to create, and then we can then break, if we can agree on the values and long-term goals, then all we
Yeah.
need to do is to break that down into stages, into steps. It's a
Yeah, and how
logical
we're going to go
progression,
about it.
yeah. And then you start to
Yeah.
realize, oh, so these are the resources we're going to need. So you've got to get your thinking in order into a sort of into a structure for your group to come together, because you're going to have to
Yeah.
make long-term decisions that have legal consequences, like
Yeah.
owning a property and exchanging lots of money, and having contracts for that, so that people, because what will happen is people will want to come in and out and stuff like that. and
Of course. Yeah.
and then what happens if I've bought into your project and I move out later and I want to go, well, I think I should get more than what I put in because the property is worth more. Where does that money come from? The
Yeah.
co-op model takes you past that. If you invest in it, you just get interest. There's no equity, and the equity the value that you create yourselves by as your property develops belongs to the co-op, belongs to whoever lives there. That's the really
Right.
cool
Right.
idea about it. So no one can come in and cash it all in. Look, I did all
But
that
surely
work.
that surely that creates like people being upset. I mean, it doesn't bother me at all. I love that idea. But then, if someone comes in saying they put 600K in and then they want to go and then they're not going to get, and then they haven't made any money, but then they're not doing it for the right reasons, then are they? If that's what they're
Correct.
after.
Correct. Are you a capitalist? Do you want to make money that you didn't earn, or are you going to try and
No,
work
exactly. No, I just
together
want
with
to
a,
create something fair for everybody. I
yeah.
want
So
everybody to be able to access a lovely place to live. I want to build a community for everybody.
we were
I
all
don't want it just to be rich people.
we were all brainwashed in the 80s. We were all brainwashed in the 80s to look at housing and not see it as homes, but to see it as financial assets that you could leverage money against and make
Mm,
money out of money. Fuck that. That's what's got us into the problem. So your
absolutely.
members, if that's what they want, then they might not be thinking right. But what if you put a lot of money in, like 600 grand? What you might want to do is into your business plan is slowly you actually want to pay off your big investors.
Yeah.
You don't want to have individual who might walk away with. So here's another thing about loan stock, right? I haven't explained this. There's a lot of detail to this. Is loan stock is the co-op has guarantees and legally bound to pay interest to the investor, right? You're not
Mm,
guaranteed to pay the principal back. You pay the principal back by negotiation. So they can't give you a date. I need my money by the 12th of December. They cannot do that. They can say, I would like my money out as soon as possible, please. And if it's a large amount of money, I probably need to give you several years' notice. Or you need to build it into the business plan. So
mm.
we have an investor, we have an individual investor who dropped £54,000 on us 6 years ago. That helped was the difference between Dragons Co-op starting and not starting. And he said to us, I want to leave that in my will to someone else. And so, you don't have to pay me back, but you'll have to pay someone else in the future. So we can't afford to pay £54,000, and that would be
No.
impossible. So what we've done is we've written a plan, and we've worked out that in 12 years' time, we'll be able to get a new mortgage with the bank, because we do have a mortgage, because we don't have any capital. And then we'll be able to pay it back. So we have a contract with these people that is, they can't ask for their money back for 12 years.
Yeah.
And at that point, we will be able to pay them.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, because then you're safeguarding yourself, because that's
Yes.
the last thing you want is sort of have the big investors come in and be all gung ho and then decide after a year, 2 years they want out, and then it means it screws us little people up. Who do you know?
That's
what I
what
mean?
you have to guard against.
Mm.
And again, is the people who've got the 600 grand. They probably, I bet you, they made it because they sold a property. So,
I think
nothing.
people have sold businesses and stuff
Okay.
like that.
No, I'm being a bit
People
harsh
have
there.
actually sold their houses,
Sure.
which is fair enough. I've just never bought a house because I've never been able to afford it,
Yeah.
and
Well,
B, it's never. being a home. I want a home with lots of other people. I want to be a community. I want that. I don't want a single house to myself. It doesn't sound, that's not a home to me.
Yeah. No, well, no, the natural state for humans is overlapping extended families. We need to live in a kind of clans and stuff like that. I mean, it doesn't work just individually. But see, co-ops can join other co-ops. So also you can build networks. So
right.
You don't necessarily all have to be on one property and stuff. But
yes, we were talking about this because there's several places, because they want to do one in Wales as well. That some people are drawn to Wales, and we were saying, oh, if we could get 2 set up, it would be great, because then we could go and visit the other one, and we'd have somewhere to go, and with people that are like-minded. So that has already been talked about. Someone's just posted up on the group because they couldn't get in. Some people are really, really anti-mortgages. They say that they're unlawful. They say that obviously it's just numbers on a screen, and it's not actually lawful. I mean, it's a whole common law thing.
Yeah, I'm an economics teacher, so I do understand how it all works and stuff. They just need to be a bit careful, but they're getting lost in a smoke and mirrors a little bit there with that. Okay, so Triodos Bank do not lend out money that they don't have. So there's a thing called the credit multiplier. So banks, because nobody wants all their money back at the same time, they lend out money up to 35 times. And that's what they mean about they're unlawful. I understand that. It's money that isn't there. Triodos don't do that. And when they had the banking collapse in 2008, they were unaffected because they hadn't bought in any of those dodgy environmental products. Ask yourself the other question is, imagine you were a bank and imagine you were an ethical investor. What would you invest in? But put it the other way around, right? Okay, I do have money that is real money and I want to do social good with it. What am I going to invest it in? How about housing co-ops? That's about the best thing that you could put money into. So Triodos really like housing co-ops. So you're actually solving the problem by working with the agents that are trying to make it better, rather than trying to just completely run away from the system. Because you don't really have that option. You're in the UK, for fuck's sake. It's like, you know what I mean? It's sort of
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I get you. I really get you. And I have looked at Triodos. I'm literally in the process of transferring over from Barclays to Triodos myself. But so that's what because I was looking for ethical investment. My boss was paying me, and I was like, well, where's it going? I don't want it to go there. I don't want my bonus to go there. I want it to go ethically. And he was like, oh, we'll check what they do, but there's so much small print. You don't know. You get hoodwinked by all the big words.
Well, I've been working with Triodos. I've been a customer of Triodos since 1995.
Right.
When they first came to Britain, that was when they first came. And there is a difference, and they're doing really good work because they're enabling people like me. I've set up 5 co-ops. I'll be able to help 5 groups of people take control of their lives, and we've all, to a certain degree, had some help from Triodos. So I'm really, really grateful to them.
Right.
And for me, it's worked. And we went through the financial crisis and everything. They were unaffected by it. So I think it's okay. But of course, that's up to you. But if you want to do it 100% with your own money, people like you get squeezed out.
This is the thing, because I don't have that much money. And this is my trouble, because I've been speaking to so many people that don't have a lot of money, but they're still great people with amazing skills. I mean, we have had this chat, saying that some people have got money and some people have got skills, and that's the exchange, which I totally agree with. But I'm just concerned that it gets lost in that. I want it to be, well, that's the thing, isn't it? I'm just one single person. I can't want anything.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, look, hey, how about this? We've got 6 minutes left, by the way. Before they chuck us off. How about this? Is the co-op structure, it's 200 years old now. That's quite a good track record to align yourself with and things to network with. There's a lot of experience and learning there. And if you want to actually get to your goal and achieve it in a workable way, you've got to look at existing structures around you which really work. And that's the one that it would enable you to get on with, to prevent you having to reinvent the wheel all over again and become a talking shop for 4 years. And meanwhile, people get bored and drift off and stuff like that.
No, I don't want to be talking for 4 years. No, we're ready to move in June. The tender on this property is the 20th of June. So we're desperately trying to get funds.
With the here's the thing: with the idea that I'm giving you is you could go and buy that property as a co-op immediately. You could begin that process right now,
Right.
and
Okay. Cool.
and and that might well, and if you haven't got all the money in cash, then yes, get a mortgage, but you can pay it off. You don't have to be beholden to the bank forever. You can get a mortgage where there's no penalty. You can just, if we suddenly came into money, we could just pay our mortgage off tomorrow.
Yeah. And we've got business opportunities there. So we've got livery stables that's already running. We've got rentable houses. The 5 2-bedroom cottages are already rented out. So we've got capital coming in if we wanted to. It's just, people are a bit concerned about people who live there already, whether they're in the same ethos and headspace as we are.
Oh, well, okay. So that's a separate conversation. But if you were going to come and turn it into a co-op, they'd have to understand that it's, and buy into that ethos and stuff like that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have kind of legacy tenants that don't have the same vision. That's happened before, and that can be like a tooth going bad if you're not careful. And
well, they have been given notice, but obviously, to not be complete arseholes that come in and kick them out. It would be nice if they were decent people, and say we couldn't afford it and we needed a mortgage, we could keep 3 of them rentable. What you know what I mean?
What you could do is you give them due notice to quit, and then say they're welcome to invite to join the co-op. And and the rule number 1, there are 7 principles of cooperation, right, which have come from the guy, a bunch of people called the sort of founding fathers of the co-op movement. Anyway, came from Rochdale. They were spinners from Rochdale. We call them the Rochdale pioneers, and they created the 7 principles of cooperation. There's 900 million people around the world in co-ops right now, and they're all working on these same 7 principles. And they're this. The first one is anyone can apply to join a co-op. You cannot discriminate, on any ground. Except for they have to agree to be bound by the rules of the co-op. That's the key rule, right? So you create rules. So instantly, co-ops have structure. They have an operating system. So anybody wants to join, including your sitting tenants, you invite them to join. You can't discriminate against them other than the fact that they buy into your rules. And if you are a Radical Roots co-op, you get a set of model rules that have already been written, and then you write your own secondary rules that sit on top, which is about your ethics and how you're going to do things. Okay, that's the first principle of co-ops. Second is that they're democratic organizations and everybody gets an equal vote. So one member, one vote. Doesn't matter how much you've invested in or not, your voice is equal. The third thing is about capital, and is it the members of the co-op have an equal share of capital. Normally you have a £1 share or something like that, and investors just get interest. They're not. That's a different thing. Okay.
Right.
Rule 4 is that co-ops are autonomous. So you can join other groups as a co-op, but you can't ever give away your own right to be self-determining. Okay, you can't say, you know what, Steve knows more about it than we do, we'll let him run our co-op. No, you can't do that.
No.
You're autonomous.
Yeah.
So, but as a co-op, you might form an alliance with another co-op, but you do that mutually, but you create a secondary co-op. So that's an important idea. Principle 5 is co-ops need to educate their members as to what co-ops are. And that was the mistake we made at Chicken Shack, was everything was so fine and dandy for 10 years. We forgot to kind of keep investing in people and training them so that they understood what kind of legal structure they were part of.
How it worked.
Principle 6 is that co-ops should cooperate with other co-ops. The way to be strong is to form allegiances of other people. And principle 7 is, and also you should have a wider concern for community, and you should engage with the community about the benefits of cooperation and stuff like that. So again, it's a really good operating system because there you go. So
it's really good principles. Yeah, I like it.
They're really solid. And again, it's like 200 years tried and tested. The co-ops that work are the ones that best adhere to those principles, and the ones that go away from them tend to fail. That's the learning.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that. Yeah, totally aware of that. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
That's okay. I'm a bit brusque, but I was trying to I know there's always a lot to say on these things.
No. I wanted you to do that. I don't really know what I'm saying, and I lose my words because my brain fog is so bad at the moment. Yeah. So it's really cool. It's really helpful. Also, you're in Wales, right?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Llanrhaeadr y Mochnant. Right, it's on the border. On the border,
okay,
actually, close to Oswestry, if you know where that is, or Shrewsbury.
No, I'm in Winefowl.
South of Chester.
I'm in Snowdonia.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, but your your permaculture thing, I'd be interested in the little booklet as well.
Yeah, I think I put it on the chat. I don't know if you can access it there.
I
If
should
you
be able to.
click
Yes,
on
I
the
think
chat
so.
thing, I put it in there.
Okay, great.
I've done it mainly for, it's got, yes.
Oh no, it doesn't. It's not in there.
Oh, okay. Well,
There's no chat in there,
all
because
right.
that would be super helpful.
Yeah, I've put it. I don't know how it's why it isn't. Oh, okay. I'll try sending it to you again.
Yeah, or you can just send it to me via Facebook Messenger if you want.
Yeah.
That might be easier. Cool. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much.